There are people in this world who stand in the shadows, not because they don't matter, but because they care too much to step into the light. And one of those men was Red West, not a singer, not a star, but a bodyguard, a friend, a brother, and one of the few people who saw Elvis Presley not as a legend, but as a man. Red West was with Elvis from the very beginning, from the early days in Memphis, to the Hollywood years, to the final painful tours of the 1970s. He didn't just protect Elvis from the outside world. He tried to protect him from the inside one, from the loneliness, from the pills, from the crushing weight of being the king. And now, years after Red West passed away in 2017, something has emerged, something never shared before. In the final days of his life, Red sat down with a close family member and recorded a private audio message, just 18 minutes long. No cameras, no reporters, just a dying man speaking from the heart. And in that message, he revealed Elvis's biggest secret, not about scandal, not about conspiracy, but about pain, love, and a cry for help that no one heard in time. And what Red West said will change everything you thought you knew about Elvis Presley. Because the truth is, Elvis didn't just die on August 16, 1977. He died slowly, and Red West saw it coming. He saw it in the way Elvis would sit alone in his dressing room, staring at the floor, in the way he'd whisper, "Red, do you think God still hears me?" In the way he'd cry during gospel songs, not acting, not performing, but praying. And now, in what may be the most important personal account ever shared about Elvis, Red's final words have been released. Not for fame, but for truth. And I'm going to tell you what he said, because this isn't just a story about a bodyguard. It's a story about loyalty, regret, and the man behind the jumpsuit. Red West wasn't just hired muscle. He was one of Elvis's childhood friends. They grew up together in Memphis, hunted together, prayed together, and when Elvis became famous, he didn't bring in strangers. He brought in Red, and for nearly 2 decades, Red was there, on stage, on tour, in the house. He slept outside Elvis's bedroom door. He carried his guns. He broke up fights. But more than that, he listened. And in those quiet moments, after the crowds left and the music stopped, Elvis would talk about his mother, Gladys, how he never got over losing her, about Priscilla, how much he still loved her, about Lisa Marie, how he feared he was failing her, and about fame, how it felt like a prison. Red once said, Elvis didn't want to be the king. He just wanted to be happy. But happiness kept slipping away. By the 1970s, Red saw the change. The energy was gone. The sparkle in his eyes faded. The voice, still powerful but tired. And the pills, they were everywhere. Doctors called them vitamins. But Red knew better. He said, they weren't keeping him alive, they were keeping him on stage. And the worst part? The people around Elvis, the so-called friends, the entourage, they didn't care. They cared about access, about money, about being seen with the king. But Red, he cared about Elvis. And in his final message, Red said something that will haunt me forever. I knew he was dying. I saw it in his eyes. I felt it in his hands. And I didn't stop it. He said he tried. He confronted the doctors. He argued with the colonel. He even begged Vernon, Elvis's father, to step in. But the shows kept coming. Over 100 a year, 2 a night. And Elvis kept going, because he didn't know how to say no. Red said he didn't know who he was without the stage, without the screams, without the crown. And in 1976, during a tour stop in Denver, Elvis broke down. He was in his room, fully dressed, still in his jumpsuit. Red walked in and found him on his knees, crying. Not loud, just silent tears. And when Red asked, "What's wrong, Elvis?" he looked up and said, "I don't feel real anymore, Red. I don't know if I ever was." Red said that moment stayed with him for the rest of his life, because that wasn't the king. That was a man who had given the world everything and gotten loneliness in return. And now, in his final words, Red revealed the biggest secret Elvis ever told him. Not about women, not about money, but about his fear of dying alone. Red said, "One night in 1977, just weeks before he passed, Elvis looked at me and said, 'Red, if I die young, don't let the world think I didn't care. Tell them I loved them. Tell them I was just tired.' And Red promised him. He said, 'I will, boss. I'll tell them.' But when Elvis died, Red was fired, cut off, blamed because he had spoken up, because he had tried to protect him, and for decades, he stayed silent. He wrote a book, Elvis, What Happened, in 1977, warning the world about Elvis's decline, and for that, he was labeled a traitor. But in his final message, Red said, 'I wasn't a traitor. I was a friend. And the only betrayal was letting him die the way he did.' He said he carried guilt every day, that he should have taken Elvis away, to a cabin, to the country, anywhere. But he didn't. And now, with his last breath, he wanted the world to know the truth. Not the gossip, not the myths, but the real Elvis, the man who read the Bible every night, cried when he saw poor children, wrote checks to strangers, sang gospel songs with tears in his eyes, and whispered, 'I just want to be.' Love for me?" Red said. "People think Elvis had everything, but he didn't have peace. He didn't have quiet. He didn't have someone to say, 'Stop, rest, you're not alone.' And in his final words, Red made one last request. Play his music, but don't just hear the voice, hear the man, because behind every song was a cry for help. He passed away shortly after recording that message. And now, for the first time, his words are being shared, and the world is listening, because this isn't just about Red West. It's about what we all failed to see. Elvis didn't need more fans. He didn't need more concerts. He needed someone to say, 'You don't have to do this.' And Red West was one of the few who tried. Now, let me share something personal. My name is Sam Thomas Elvis Presley Fans. Yes, that's my real name. I've loved Elvis since 1956. I remember the first time I heard Hound Dog. I was young, but I felt it. And through the years, his voice was my companion. But when I heard Red West's final words, something changed. It wasn't just touching, it was awakening, because I realized we celebrated the king, but we forgot the man. And Red West, he never forgot. He stood in the shadows, he carried the pain, and in the end, he gave us the truth. And that truth, it's not shocking because it's dark. It's shocking because it's real. Elvis wasn't perfect. He was human. He was tired. He was lonely. But he was real, and that's why we still love him. Not because he was flawless, but because he was one of us. So the next time you play How Great Thou Art, listen closely. Because in that voice, you're not just hearing a singer. You're hearing a man who believed in God, in love, in second chances, and in the end, he just wanted to be remembered not for the fame, but for the heart. This is Sam Thomas. Elvis Presley fans, age 70, and I believe in the power of truth, of music, of loyalty. And if there's one thing Red West's final words have taught me, it's that the people who love you the most are often the ones who say the hardest things, because they care. And Red West cared, until his very last breath. So to Red, thank you for standing by him, for speaking up, for telling the truth. And to Elvis, thank you for the music, for the magic, for the soul, and for letting us love you even when you couldn't love yourself. This is Sam Thomas signing off, but never saying goodbye, because as long as one heart still beats for the King Elvis Presley lives, so to Red, thank you for standing by him, for speaking up, for telling the truth, and to Elvis, thank you for the music, for the magic, for the soul, and for letting us love you, even when you couldn't love yourself. This is Sam Thomas Elvis, Presley fans age 70. And I believe in the power of truth, of music, of loyalty. And if there's one thing Red West's final words have taught me, it's that the people who love you the most are often the ones who say the hardest things, because they care, and Red West cared until his very last breath. Now, as we remember Elvis, not just in sorrow but in celebration, let us never forget what he truly accomplished. Because beyond the jumpsuits, beyond the fame, beyond the tragedy, Elvis Presley changed the world. He was born on January 8, 1935, in a two-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi. Poor, quiet, unassuming. No one could have guessed that this shy boy with a love for gospel music would become the most influential entertainer in modern history. But in 1954, when he walked into Sun Records and sang "That's All Right," something revolutionary happened. He blended gospel, blues, country, and rhythm and blues into a new sound, raw, energetic, electric. They called it rock and roll, and Elvis was its first king. By 1956, he exploded onto the world stage. Heartbreak Hotel, Number 1, Hound Dog, a cultural earthquake, blue suede shoes, an anthem, and when he moved his hips on television, parents gasped, preachers preached against him, and teenagers found their voice. He wasn't just singing, he was freeing a generation. He broke racial barriers, bringing black music to white audiences at a time of segregation. Sam Phillips, the man who discovered him, said, "If I could find a white boy who could sing like a black man, I could make $1 million. But Elvis didn't just sing like a black man, he honored the music. He gave credit. He stood in awe of B.B. King, of Arthur Crudup, of Mahalia Jackson, and he said, the music I sing, it came from the black churches, the juke joints, the soul of a people. I just got to share it, and share it." He did. Over his lifetime, Elvis released over 600 songs, sold over 1 billion records worldwide, more than any solo artist in history, had 149 songs on the Billboard charts, earned 3 Grammy Awards, all for gospel music. The music of his heart was the first artist inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Country Music Hall of Fame, and the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Performed over 200 concerts, starred in 31 films, and made Las Vegas the entertainment capital of the world. He was the first to sell out sold-out concerts for months at a time, the first to wear glittering jumpsuits that became symbols of rock and roll, the first to be called the King. And when he performed his legendary '68 comeback special, he didn't just revive his career, he revived rock and roll itself. Bruce Springsteen said, "After Elvis, only noise." Paul McCartney said, "Elvis freed your body. Before him, you danced stiffly. After him, you moved like you meant it." And Bono of U2 said, "There is only one true rock star. His name is Elvis Presley. But beyond the records, the awards, the fame, Elvis changed hearts. He gave hope to the lonely, joy to the broken, and a voice to the voiceless. When he sang "In the Ghetto," he made the world care about a child born into poverty. When he sang "If I Can Dream," he preached peace during the Vietnam War. When he sang "How Great Thou Art," he reminded us that even kings have faith. And when he sang "Can't Help Falling in Love," he made love feel eternal. Even after his death, his legacy grew. Graceland receives over 500,000 visitors a year, a pilgrimage site for fans from every country. His music is still played on radios, in films, in homes, in hearts, And in 2022, the biopic Elvis, directed by Baz Luhrmann, introduced him to a new generation, young people who saw his pain, his passion, and his power. And they said, we still need the king. Because Elvis wasn't just a musician, he was a cultural revolution, a symbol of rebellion, style, charisma, and soul. And though he left this world too soon, his music never left us. So as we honor Red West for speaking the truth, and as we feel the pain of what Elvis endured, let us also celebrate what he achieved, not just in fame, but in eternity. Because the man who was once a poor boy from Tupelo is now a global icon. The man who cried alone in his room is now singing in millions of homes. The man who felt forgotten is now loved more than ever. And the man who once whispered, "I don't feel real anymore," is now more real than ever, in every note, in every memory, in every heart that still plays his music. This is Sam Thomas Elvis Presley fans, age 70. And I've loved Elvis since the day Heartbreak Hotel first played on the radio. I've stood at his grave. I've touched his microphone. I've cried at his songs, and I will never stop believing in him, because the king may have left the building. But he never left us. So the next time you hear Suspicious Minds play, or see a young kid dance to Jailhouse Rock, or watch a bride walk down the aisle to Can't Help Falling in Love, remember this. Elvis Presley didn't just make music. He made history. He didn't just wear a crown, he earned it. And he didn't just die at 42, he lived forever. This is Sam Thomas, signing off but never saying goodbye. Because as long as one heart still beats for the king, Elvis Presley lives, and he always will.